The Rangers dropped their fifth straight at home after they came up short against the Leafs 4-3. Well, Jim Cerny of Forever Blueshirts is back on so he can talk about how time is ticking for the Blue Shirts to make a playoff run. Jim, what's going on, my man? How are you?
I'm doing well. 12 games to go, man. We'll see how it goes down the stretch.
All right, I love the positivity. So we'll start with a positive from that loss. I guess they had a better performance than the Calgary loss, and they went toe-to-toe with a really good Toronto team. The negative, they fell out of playoff contention. No participation trophies in sports, Jim, but can we at least say that was an encouraging loss? Like, were you surprised that they couldn't pull it off against the Leafs?
So, am I surprised I couldn't pull it off? No, I'm not surprised by that. Leafs, as you pointed out, are one of the best teams in the league, fighting for first place in the Atlantic Division. But Toronto was coming off a game the night before. They arrive in New York. They don't get to their hotel till 2, 3 in the morning. So you could stack it up that way too and say, boy, this is a game the Rangers had to win, especially after how terrible they were in that game Tuesday against Calgary. And what really stood out in that one was the lack of compete. They just were beaten to every puck. They looked slow. They looked disinterested. Calgary was the hungrier team. Both teams are fighting for a playoff spot. One team looked like they were playing for a playoff spot. The other team looked like they were looking for the golf course. And yeah. So was it a better effort by the Rangers? Did they play better against Toronto? Absolutely, they did. But, that can't be your margin for saying, hey, this is a good loss or whatever. There are 12 games to go in the season. There are no good losses right now because they need every single point that they can get. And trust me, there were still a myriad of issues in their performance on Thursday night.
Yeah, I feel like playing professional sports here in New York City, there's no such thing as a good loss. It's either get it done or go home. But let's stay with some of that positivity, because right now it's easy to just beat up and pile on when it comes to this team and the product they've been putting on ice. What are they doing right that gives you hope that with 12 games left, they can make some sort of run and just sneak into the playoffs?
So you're not going to like my answer, I don't think. Here's what I think gives them a chance, okay? And part of it is out of their hands because right now they've played two more games than all the teams, each of the teams that they're competing for the final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. So they need some help. Where can they get help? Well, I think they can get it because this is a mediocre lot of teams battling it out for the final playoff spot, the Rangers included, right? They've been really the prime example of mediocrity so far this season. So I think, your best hope is that, the Rangers can beat a team that, listen, on paper, they're as good as, if not better than in Vancouver tomorrow at the Garden. Then you go on the road, 3-game road trip to California sounds daunting, but you got the San Jose Sharks who are in tank mode right now, one of the worst teams in the league. You got the beatable Anaheim Ducks. So, those are two games. If you're really fighting for a playoff spot, those are two games that you got to win. So now we're talking about, hey, well, wait a minute, maybe that's 3 wins in 4 games for them. And then, who scares you that you're fighting for that playoff spot with, right? Columbus and Detroit are both wilting down the stretch, even more so than the Rangers are right now, falling back and just wilting, under the pressure of the race. Montreal is a good young team, but they've got a minus 18 goal differential this season. They host Colorado at home tomorrow night. So, boom, Rangers could win tomorrow and leapfrog back into a playoff spot if Montreal loses to a very good Colorado team. So I think that's where your hope lies, is a little bit in the mediocrity of who you're fighting for, who your competitors are for this final playoff spot. And at the end of the day, if you do want some great positives, Igor Shesterkin stood on his head Tuesday night in a game that the Rangers should have been run out of the building, 6-7-1 or something of that nature. Instead, they lost 2-1 and had a chance to tie, maybe get a point, maybe get 2 points and win if they got it to overtime, which they didn't. But really, Igor Shesterkin was unbelievable on Tuesday night. Not as great on Thursday night, but you're looking for positives, and I'm trying to give them to you. And of course, Artemi Panarin currently on an 11-game point streak, a heater at the right time of the season.
Jim, that's 5 straight losses at home. You got to take care of business on the home front, especially in New York City and at the Garden. So two-part question. What was that atmosphere like last night when it came to Peter Laviolette? And do you feel like Lavi has lost the locker room?
Yeah, well, those are two different questions for sure. Yeah, the crowd wasn't happy to say the least. The Rangers are actually under 500, even NHL 500 at home ice, on home ice this season. 16 up, 17 down, and then three overtime losses as well. So 16, 17, and three at home. You don't see many teams contending for a playoff spot when you're that poor on home ice. And fans weren't happy about it. They really weren't happy Tuesday. I mean, we talked about, what a bad effort that game was and bad performance. And the booing started early and went off. And in that one, last night, there were still some boos that rained down, especially at the end of the game. And you're right. There were some fire Lavi chants both Tuesday and Thursday. The fans want a head. They want somebody's scalp right now because they're pissed. They see a team that was a President's Trophy winner last season, finished 2 victories shy of reaching the Stanley Cup final last year. How did this happen? It's got to be somebody's fault, and there are a lot of somebodies to blame here, as you and I have talked about in the past. Have the players checked out on Peter Laviolette? That's a great question, and it's really, really difficult to answer unless you're in the room every day and you're a part of the mix. I wouldn't want to say one way or the other. I will say it does not pass the eye test well. The amount of no-show efforts by the Rangers this season and the same mistakes that they make over and over and over. We talked about how last night they played better. But yet, what did them in? Boy, terrible defensive structure, giving up on the structure, being out of position, turnovers, again, beaten off the rush, beaten down low, the things that have happened all season long, these issues that have not been corrected. So yes, players take blame. The coach has to take blame here as well. So are they tuning him out? There's a very, very strong, list that you can point to of examples saying, yeah, they probably have checked out.
Well, you tune in to the Rangers fan base and you speak to your audience all of the time. Whose scalp do they want?
So there's a long list here. But I will say that it appears Chris Jury is lower on that list than Peter Laviolette is. I will say the feedback I get from the fan base is that Laviolette's got to go. And we saw Boomer Esiason, he was on FAN the other morning. He was ripping the head coach, and that was met positively by the Ranger fans. But I think the consensus is they want the coach out. It's not working. Everyone's down on the man-to-man defense. They're the 1-3-1 system that they deploy that just has not worked all season long because the players haven't committed to that structure. And that's fair. Like if they make a coaching change, that's fair, Brandon. This is a massively disappointing season. The hard part is who's next? There's no obvious guy to replace Peter Laviolette as coach of this team next season. So, what do you do? Chris Jury so far has really put all his eggs in a basket with Peter Laviolette. He seems to really believe in the coach. He could have fired him back in November and December when this was really a dumpster fire and turned it over then. What he did instead was turn over the roster as best as he could during the course of the season, and he stuck with the head coach. And I thought that was a pretty telling decision by him. But the fans, the scalp they want is the coach right now. But trust me, the players aren't getting out of this free either. Keandre Miller, he's on a lot of hit lists as well. And he's probably taking the role of Jacob Trouba, who's since been traded, for the guy that probably the fans are most down on right now.
All right, well, hopefully with 12 games left, they can go on some sort of run, turn this thing around, and just, I guess, put some smiles on some people's faces because we both didn't expect the Rangers to be in the position that they're in now. Great as always to have you on, Jim. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks, Brandon.